But I just feel like when you have such an historic season out of Aaron Judge, I mean, led the American League in home runs, RBIs, not batting average, on base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS plus. I mean, he led the league in almost every single category you can think of.
Welcome to episode 63 of Everything Sports with Aman and Evan. I'm your host, Aman Carney.
And I'm your co-host, Evan Garber.
And we talk about the hottest topics in sports that occurred over the past week. And in today's episode, we will be talking about MLB and free agency news. And then pretty much most of the episode is going to be talking about hot takes submitted on Discord, our own hot takes and whatnot. But before we start, like I mentioned, Discord, you don't want to miss the conversation, so please join there. The join links are on almost every description of our YouTube videos, TikTok, all social media platforms. Follow us there as well. So, as the graphic says, sports content is posted daily, so you don't want to miss it. But without further ado, let's get it started into MLB free agency. Evan, tell us something about MLB free agency.
Well, I think probably one of the biggest news so far is that Cody Bellinger got non-tendered by the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, I personally find this a little bit surprising because I feel like even though Cody Bellinger has been far worse than his MVP season in terms of batting, he still is a really, really, really good defensive center fielder. And I think that they could have gotten value out of him. I don't think he would have required a huge contract. And I think that they could have actually traded a contract because there are teams like the Giants that need a defensive center fielder, and they could sign him for the low now, I feel like.
Yeah, it's been pretty apparent you could. We've worn Giants shirts on episodes before. Like we are. I don't follow baseball as much as him, but when I do, I'm a Giants fan because Bay Area sports. But I agree with you. And Cody Bellinger, it was one of those situations where it's recency bias. Like, he got that contract because of recency bias. Oh, yes, he was playing amazing, but the contract was huge, and you saw that. His stats are really dipping below, and we'll talk about Aaron Judge in the hot take segment. So stay through the episode to listen to that. But I feel like the Dodgers, it's reported they're making a run at Aaron Judge. And I feel like, obviously, you got the Yankees in the mix. You got the Giants in the mix. Giants are, I don't want to say, if we're not including the Yankees, the Giants are definitely favorites to sign him, I feel like. He's from here, his family lives here, I think, and it's just the Giants who came off and didn't do well this season, but did really well the season before, ended up losing to the Dodgers. If the Dodgers get Aaron Judge, then there was already no excuse to not make it to the World Series. For I feel like the Yankees and the Dodgers, but now that the Dodgers lost the way that they did lose, if they get Judge, man, with Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, who are top 5 in MVP voting, you're adding Aaron Judge. You pretty much got 3 MVP caliber players on the roster with a pretty good pitching attack. Like, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the Dodgers get Aaron Judge. But the Dodgers are heavy favorites to win it all, and they honestly have no excuse. No excuse whatsoever. This is a World Series winning team if they add Judge. What do you think? There's just no way they have any excuse to not make it to the World Series or to even not win the World Series if they do get Judge. So what do you think the Dodgers' expectation should be if they do sign Judge?
No, yeah, I totally 100% agree with you. if they do sign Aaron Judge. I mean, obviously that does mean that they will likely not get Trey Turner back, but even then, you still have such a good team there, and the shortstop class this year is pretty deep in free agency, so they can even go out and get a guy like Dansby Swanson or something like that, and add him at shortstop, or they can continue with Gavin Lux, who's showed some signs of being really good. I mean, this team is just so insane. If they can get everyone back, like Clayton Kershaw, if they can get Trey Turner back, maybe if they don't. But if they add Judge, this team is absolutely insane. One of the best teams you've ever seen on paper. I mean, they've always been for years and years now. And if you add, and then you add the MVP, should have been unanimous. We'll get to that later, but he should have been unanimous MVP. I mean, that team is just so good. I wouldn't ever want to face them in the postseason. They're gonna roll right through you if everything falls for them correctly. But as we've seen, it doesn't happen that way. But I just feel like if they get Aaron Judge, there's absolutely zero chance that they lose.
Yeah, and I mean things can happen. Like Aaron Judge had his amazing regular season, kind of cooled off in the postseason, and then Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, they're top five MVPs. You have like three MVP caliber players on your roster. Like if we're relating it to sports, this is like Kevin Durant coming to the Warriors. They got 2 rings in 3 years. They would have gone 3 for 3 if Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson didn't get hurt. So like if you're I feel like it's kind of like that. And the Dodgers, if they get Judge, it's like I mean they've already it's going to be a dynasty easily. Betts, Freeman and Judge, you can't stop that team. And yes, things happen in the postseason, but there is just too much talent. And even the like so-called role players, I don't even know if that's a thing in baseball, but the role players that aren't even stars in baseball, like the players other than Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Aaron Judge, those clear stars, there's just too much talent on the Dodgers roster to fold and just lose, especially the way they're losing these postseason games. And yes, they won a World Series. I'm not discrediting it just because it's a shorter season, but it was a shorter season. It was a shorter season. I mean, we see it with the Astros. They have got, I would call it, I don't know if I would call it a dynasty. I mean, I'm hesitant because of their whole cheating scandal, right? But they have had so much success as of late. They finally won the World Series without cheating. But you see their ability to sign players, make it work, draft players, Altuve, Bregman, and whatnot. I mean, they lost Correa, and now Pena was a rookie and won, was it the ALCS, I think, MVP, and then the World Series MVP. Like, this kid's for real. They lost Correa, and they still won the World Series. Like, I feel like minus the cheating scandal, teams should sort of look at the Astros formula of signing drafting players and using players to make it work, because recently, like, they're always a playoff team. Now they just won the World Series. And as for the Dodgers, their pitching is really good and their batting's going to be really good. So there's absolutely no excuse for the Dodgers not to make it or win the World Series. But what other free agency news do you think is interesting?
Well, I think the rumor mill around Jacob DeGrom is very interesting. It's seeming more and more likely that he will, in fact, leave the New York Mets. And there's been some rumors about him joining the Braves, or maybe even the Rangers, or maybe the Giants can even swoop in since they lost Rodon, maybe. I mean, there's so many teams around them, but I think that the perfect fit is the Atlanta Braves. If the Atlanta Braves get Jacob DeGrom, that team is so stacked. I mean, obviously, you got Kevin Jensen in the bullpen. The pitching staff will be elite. You have three quality, I mean, honestly, number one starters in that rotation. And obviously, you have the guys in the lineup. And, I mean, of course, this season didn't go as planned. You had some injuries with Acuna obviously coming back. You had Ozzy Albies out for some time. I mean, the only thing that can honestly I think that will get in their way is the injuries because that team would be elite. I mean, I think that they might lose Dansby Swanson in the off season, but obviously you got guys like Trey Turner, you got Carlos Correa, you got so many guys on the free agent market that you could replace him with. And if they can find that center fielder, which they've been sort of lacking, if they can find that guy in center field, then that team actually could win the World Series.
Yeah, and I mean, they still made it to the playoffs this year, and they've locked down their young guys for years to come. And we talk about dynasties. This could be a dynasty forming. Like you said, I agree. Health is pretty much the only concern, and we saw not this past season, the season before, how they retooled at the trade deadline and then just blitzed teams in the playoffs with uh, Freeman. Jock Peterson was a good signing. Dansby Swanson is obviously a great one too, but I mean, I agree. Health is the only concern for the Braves. And as for DeGrom, I mean, I did see him in a minor league game. He didn't play well in his minor league rehab start, but obviously he's an amazing pitcher. It was minor league, but if they add DeGrom to the Braves and then get their center fielder that they're looking for, I mean, the Braves, they would be in that World Series contender conversation for sure. But without further ado, I'm sure we'll post more sports shorts about baseball, about free agency. More of that will be coming soon and obviously in future episodes. And you never know, if there's so many big sports news, you might just get a random episode out of the blue from us. So just stay tuned for that because MLB free agency is here. It's big time. It started and it's rolling. But without further ado, let's get into the hot take segment. We'll keep it here in the baseball world. I mean, Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, that AL MVP battle, obviously, NL MVP was well deserved. And I feel like the AL MVP was more controversial, way more controversial than I actually thought. Like, you and I feel like we said it in another episode, Aaron Judge should win the MVP unanimously. Yes, Shohei Ohtani has had a historic season and stuff like that, had Cy Young votes, and can bat superbly. Like, there's nothing Shohei Ohtani can't do. I feel like you can play him at any position, including catcher, including outfielder, including like first, second, third baseman. Whatever it is, Shohei Ohtani is going to flourish in that position. Shohei Ohtani had a historic year, but Aaron Judge was just breaking every hitting record. Nearly got the Triple Crown. I'm not sure if he got that or not, but he still, I mean, I feel like the LA writers in the LA area, they're the ones that voted for Shohei Ohtani. A lot of people actually think Ohtani should have won personally. I mean, honestly, I can understand both sides because Shohei Ohtani had an amazing season. It just happened to be that another player in his conference was having an amazing season. Because I'm sure if they were in separate conferences, Judge would be AL MVP, Ohtani would be NL MVP, and vice versa if they were in different conferences. Because it's just two historic seasons. You choose one player over the other. I do agree with Judge being MVP, though, especially as lopsided as it was. Should have been unanimous like we think, but what do you think about Judge or Ohtani?
No, I 100% agree. It should have been unanimous. Like, I understand that Shohei's a generational talent. We've never seen anything like him before. I mean, he's Cy Young caliber pitcher. He was arguably MVP caliber batter. There's so much to like about Shohei. But I just feel like when you have such an historic season out of Aaron Judge, I mean, led the American League in home runs, RBIs, I mean, not batting average, on base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, OPS plus. I mean, he led the league in almost every single category you can think of. Yet he did not win unanimous MVP. Like, I don't know. I don't want to discredit Shohei at all. I mean, he's really 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 good. But when you have such an historic season, you can't not give him the unanimous MVP. Just like Steph, when he had a unanimous MVP, he was breaking records. He was doing it all. He was doing everything. Like, he clearly was the unanimous MVP, and like, even despite some of the great seasons other players were having, I think it's the same situation here. Even though you have a guy like Shohei, I just don't feel like it's fair enough to not give you vote to Judge when he had this historic season, a season that we'll probably never ever see again.
Yeah, and I'm sure like Otani led him in some statistical categories, but most of the voting, like if I feel like a really popular baseball movie, Moneyball, changed the way GMs really think and honestly how the sport is played. Like it's not the eye test anymore. And yes, Otani was amazing in statistical categories, amazing pitcher, amazing batter. We all know that, but like you said, when we look at the stats just past the eye test, I mean, Aaron Judge is clearly unanimous MVP because these awards should be based on how they're played. It's not just the eye test. It's the fine. You want to use a little bit of eye test, but statistics tell quite a bit of the story. Most of the times, in some cases, like in other sports, then stats don't tell most of the story in other sports, but in baseball, it's a very statistical driven sport, I feel like. More than any other sport, stats are the most important, especially in baseball. But we both agreed that Aaron Judge deservingly is unanimous MVP. So now we move on to the Discord submitted hot takes. And the first one is Kyrie Irving not being on the Nets makes them a better team. So essentially, the Nets are a better team with Kyrie Irving. And I'll give my opinion, and Evan will give his opinion, and then we'll react to what you guys on Instagram said. So if you want to take part in these episodes, follow us on Instagram or join the Discord. But this is hard, especially now that Kevin Durant flamed his teammates. So I don't know how the locker room is reacting to that. Kyrie Irving is returning. Kyrie Irving not being on the Nets, I feel like you could see more chemistry going on. Like Yuta Watanabe is shooting like an absurd 50%, 50-something percent from the field or three. But you can definitely see a bit more chemistry. The Nets have a better record. And not saying trade Kyrie and stuff like that, but I think that the Nets are a better team without Kyrie Irving. What do you think?
Honestly, I see what you're saying, but I just think that they're just Kyrie has too much talent for them to not be a better team with him. And I mean, that's just one less rotational player that you have to deal with, like lesser rotational players to deal with. And I think that, like, although Ben Simmons isn't playing that well, Ben Simmons is still a very good defender. And I think that when you have Ben Simmons on the court, you need a guy like Kyrie with him who's gonna shoot the ball, who's gonna play make, who's gonna do everything else. Because Ben Simmons, we all know this by now, he's not gonna do that. He's not gonna shoot. It's been pretty clear these past couple of years. And I mean, I don't want to be rude to Ben Simmons at all. He's a very good player, but he just clearly just seems kind of lost out there. And I think that you need Kyrie out there to help lead the offense because Ben Simmons can't do that, but he still will give you a good impact on the defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, so Instagram, 56% of the people agreed that the Nets are a better team without Kyrie Irving. Certainly interesting. We will see how they do, but it seems like you guys, obviously some people said no, but 56% is the majority, and I mean, Kevin Durant is playing more freely, and it's not all about talent in sports. Evan and I say this time and time and again. Kyrie Irving, he just needs to be in the right place because everyone knows how special he is on the court. There's no denying his, honestly, greatness because when he's on the court, you have to tune in. But staying in the basketball world, we got Darren Fox and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander should both be all-stars, and the way it works is there's 4 guards and then 6 power forwards or centers, whichever ones, and then 2 other players that get voted in any position. So, yes, there's 4 guards, but with those 2 other spots that could go to a guard or forward/center, I think Darren Fox, he may be cooling down, but Sacramento Kings, believe it or not, accept it or not, has one of the best offenses in the league. And so when you got that, I feel like Darren Fox should be an all-star. And then Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, he's almost making the case like he is a lock to be an all-star. Because obviously you got Steph, you got Luka, you got John Morant. One of those players are going to be a reserve. But I think Darren Fox and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander definitely should be in the All-Star game. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think they do deserve to be an all-star, but like you said, there's just so many good guards in that league that it's going to be tough. I mean, like you said, Dame, Steph, Luka, Ja. I mean, the list goes on and on, honestly. There's so many good guards in that league. It's going to be very tough, but with the stats they've been putting up, they definitely do deserve it, but I just don't think that they get enough credit from the fans, which makes up a large portion of the vote, and I think that'll hurt them.
Yeah, and 86% of you agreed. I'm sure the people that said no, I mean, it was pretty much your explanation, but they definitely do deserve to be an all-star. The next hot take is the Dodgers won't win a World Series by just buying players. I mean, you can see it with the Judge thing. They are buying players, and I'll say it again. I mean, I will agree with this hot take, but I'm going to say it again that, I mean, Evan has said it also. It's not just talent. It's the chemistry. It's the pieces working together. And they've worked together all regular season, but just something happens in the playoffs that they just fall apart. Like, they need more homegrown talent, and I think that's the issue. So I don't think, I mean, shoot, like I said earlier, this could become a dynasty, but I don't think they can just buy players and win a championship because chemistry is the reason why. So what do you think about that take?
Yeah, I actually think it's not believable. And first off, I want to say that I mean, they will forever be a large market, so they will forever continue to buy these players. They'll forever be that team, and they definitely will win a World Series at some point. But I just there's something about me just angers something about the take angers me a little bit because people really do forget how much homegrown talent the Dodgers actually have. They have Julio Urias, Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, Will Smith, Gavin Lux, Kenley Jansen, Cody Bellinger. I mean, the list goes on and on and on with how much homegrown talent they've had in this past decade or so. And then they also have maintained one of the best farm systems in baseball for many, many years. And I think that goes unnoticed because they always either trade the young players to go get the superstar, or they buy the superstar and they fill them out with their homegrown talent. But then, like guys like Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, they all overshadow the homegrown talent. But these guys that they've had, they really do make a huge, huge impact on the team. And I think people really do forget that just because they have a large contract does not mean the Dodgers bought them. A lot of them actually were homegrown talent. They're making a huge, huge, huge impact.
Yeah, and Instagram does seem to agree with you. 40% said agreed with me, 60% of you agreed. 60% agreed with you, and the other hot take is the Vikings are the best team in the NFL. Believe it or not, I mean, that Bills game was insane. Yes, they needed a little bit of luck, but Justin Jefferson is him. I think at this point, with how the Eagles lost to the Commanders, with how the Bills lost to the Vikings are for real. and should be talked about as the best team in the NFL. What do you think?
No, I totally agree with you, but the one concern I have is their defense. Like when you have not as strong of a defense, I'd say as some other teams, it's going to be hard to rely on Kirk Cousins in offense. I'd probably rather take Hurts, Mahomes, Josh Allen over Kirk Cousins if you need to solely rely on him. I think that might be an issue, but I mean they've proven me wrong so far this season, so I think they might continue to prove me wrong throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, and although I think they're the best team in the league now, they have had to come back from double-digit leads, and it may not be sustainable in the playoffs, and that's why 75% of you, I thought this would honestly be closer when I found this hot take, but 75% of you also said that the Vikings are the best team in the league. And other hot take is Geno Smith is not that good. Essentially, he's overrated just because of that loss to the Buccaneers. I mean, the Seahawks are 6-4 or something like that. We expected them to win like 4 or 5 games all season long. The Seahawks are very well in the playoff race. They're also in the hunt to even host a playoff game as well, because they are competing in that division. They definitely are. But I mean, like I said, Geno Smith is not overrated. He is a great quarterback. He is statistically one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league, and you can't deny that. So I think Geno Smith is a good quarterback, and he isn't overrated. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, I looked at the stats, and he has 72.8% completion percentage, which is the highest in the NFL for quarterbacks. And then obviously you have 2,474 yards and 67.7 QBR. I do not think you need much more to say he's a good quarterback. I mean, those stats say it right there. He is a really, really good quarterback. And I mean, you can say that guys like Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, their offense is carrying him sort of, but he still is playing very, very, very good football. And like obviously the defense isn't as strong, and they're still winning some games. So I think you got to give a lot of credit to Geno Smith because he is one of the best quarterbacks right now in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. 40% say that he is overrated. 60% say agree with us. I honestly thought that Instagram would favor Geno Smith more, but I guess not. But thanks for tuning in to this episode of Everything Sports with Aman and Evan. Make sure to follow us on social media platforms or join the Discord to not miss out on the discussion. Have a great week and see you in the next episode.